Okay, so you must pay close attention to what she has to say.
Yes.
Yeah, she'll give you tips.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
She's so passionate about kids.
She is.
Yeah.
Very. And she's very good at what she does.
Yeah.
All right, guys. See you just now.
All right, bye.
It's Visionaries time. Hello to you. Hi. Thank you so much for joining us. You've heard that saying, right? It takes a village to raise a child. Well, I believe that if it's done properly, that child can then grow to raise the village. My guest today is Dr. Zukiswa Mthimunye, and she is an academic who's revolutionizing the face of education in South Africa. And she's a Soweto girl. Doc, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. And
Which part of Soweto? Dube?
Dube and Diepkloof.
And Diepkloof.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up in the township?
Sure. Great and not so great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I grew up the first half, I guess, of my childhood in Dube, not far from Wandi's place.
Okay. Yeah. Very popular spot.
Yeah. And that was magical. That was my maternal grandmother's home, and just such a very vivid, like warm feelings of growing up in that home in particular. And then being in Dube as well, there was always that thing of Dube is the suburbs of Soweto.
Diepkloof.
So, no, Dube.
Dube?
Yes.
I always thought it was Diepkloof.
It was the first suburb.
Really?
Yes.
Because Diepkloof had the houses, you see.
Later, it was like the newer suburb. Yeah.
Okay. And then tell me a little bit now about the good part of the township, I suppose, is because it's vibrant, there's energy, there's people. But there's another side to the coin.
Absolutely, yeah. And the vibrant energy is really catching and becomes part of who you are. But there are the dark sides of the townships. And I think some of the things I didn't love about it were just experiences of what I now know are gender biases. And just the unsafety of being a girl child on the streets of the townships. One of the kind of stories I always talk about is walking in the street and just the notion of hearing a man say to you, "Khula sihlahla sempentshisi ngizokudla." And I, as a child, I couldn't make complete sense of what it meant. But the older I got and the tonality of how it said kind of set in me like, this is not a nice thing for someone to say. But also it's something about my body that this person is saying. And so the older I got, I had a sense that I needed to hide so that I didn't invite to myself that attention. And some of it, is taken as playful abandon. There's that one that's really stuck with me. But even the thing of, hello, sweetheart. And then when you don't hello back, it's like, hello, movie.
Yeah.
So those things are other parts of the township and growing up in the township that I didn't enjoy.
One thing that I love, though, is that you found so much solace and refuge at home, because it sounds like it was magic there and all these strong women that were all around you.
Absolutely, yeah. So I grew up in a very maternal, matriarchal household. All single women. My grandmother had been married. She was divorced and raised her kids together with my grandfather, interestingly. But he never lived in the home. And so I discovered when my grandmother passed away that they'd been divorced. Wow. So my entire childhood, I didn't know these people were not together. And I think that's how together they were in keeping the family together. So that was beautiful. But also my grandmother, she was a strong Xhosa woman. Myself and all my siblings who are not Xhosa have Xhosa names.
Yes.
So she was the one who was like, Zukiswa. That's how it goes.
That's all. And then your sister's Ayan.
My sister's
Yes,
Ayan,
my namesake.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
you also speak so beautifully about your mom. I know she had you when she was quite young. So you say you basically grew up together.
Absolutely.
Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah. So she had me at a young age. And I think at a point in her life where she was just starting to find her own identity. And so, as I said, the first few years we were at Gogo's house in Dube, and she was trying to figure this motherhood out, but with that support. And then she ventured out and bought her first home in Diepkloof, and so that's how and when we moved to Diepkloof. And so I think she was trying to figure out who am I as a young adult, but here's this girl child that I have as well. And I think it started to resonate a lot more when I was a teenager, and in a way that maybe isn't how parent-child relationships necessarily need to go. We used to consult with each other about decisions in the household.
Sure.
And I found that empowering, but sometimes not so much, because there was a very fine line around parent and child. I appreciate it now as an adult, because I realize how much quicker I matured and how much of a greater sense I had about the decisions and responsibilities that she had. But I just remember observing her strength. And, you know, as a kid, when you're like, I think things aren't great, you know, either financially or something, but damn, this woman's making a plan.
Holding
and
it down.
Holding it down.
Right?
Yeah.
You write beautifully. And when you described, you know, the female figures in your life, you said something that's so powerful that really stood out for me, at least. You said, I learned strength and resilience, you know, from watching these women in my family create their own reign.
Yes, absolutely.
Tell me about that.
That's exactly how I experienced it. I just thought to myself, you know, she dreamed something, and this is my mom, my grandmother as well. My grandmother, interestingly, I was telling a story about her value of Christmas to someone the other day, and again, she didn't have much, but we had this teeny tiny Christmas tree at home, which is made of plastic. And I just thought to myself, this woman, with the little bit that she has, she told herself, this is the kind of family value and experience I want my children and my grandchildren to have. And come what may, I'm going to make it happen. And if it is something as trivial as a small plastic tree, that's what I'm going to do. And I think my mom definitely got a lot of that from her mother, you know, and just when she realized there's an opportunity to take my kids to a better school, she chased after it.
And that for me is the village, you know, all these women around you who said, we're going to nurture and groom this young lady. And there you are, there's a picture of you and I assume your friends, your classmates.
Yes.
And this was at the German school?
That's it, yeah. That uniform.
The uniform, the tartan skirt.
Yes.
Tell me about that. What was that like, you know? Because everybody would look at you, I assume, and say, this is an opportunity of a lifetime, and grab it by both hands. Was it as fantastic as it was, or again, another dichotomy?
Another dichotomy, expectantly so as well, you know. So I got into the German school through a scholarship program that the German government still runs in South Africa. So they find top achieving young kids in township schools. In my time, the kids used to come from Soweto, Eldorado Park, so also some of the coloured townships as well. And then we'd get on a full scholarship after a 2-year process of assessing if, you know, your competence and if you'd be able to cope in a school like that one. Because it was a scholarship, it was a permanent pressure of, you know, any moment, there's no room to fail. Because failing means you might not have this opportunity and you might have to look somewhere else, and somewhere else is not an option because mom can't afford it. So I think in many ways it was inevitable that I'd have a very German experience and assimilate a lot of the German culture the longer I stayed at the school.
That's quite interesting, because I believe that you used that experience going forward in your career to where you are today. So I want to hold that thought, because your star kept on rising, and along the years, I mean, she went to varsity, a lot of things happened. If you want to find out what that lot of things are, then you'll just have to stick around. Stay with us. Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. Let's continue our conversation with Dr. Zukiswa. Now, just before the break, we discussed some of her formative years. Now we look into the success and how she got to where she is today. So we've left off now. You got the opportunity to study at a very affluent school. You go to varsity and study what?
So I go to Wits to study when I began, it was child psychology. That lasted about a semester. And I was like, nope, not for me. But eventually graduated with in industrial psychology. So I'd studied industrial psych, industrial sociology, and German. I actually kept the German up in undergrad.
How fluent are you in German?
It got shabby over the years because I didn't have practice and anyone to speak it with. But my little boy is now learning German. So I have to pick it up again. And it's been helpful. Like I've had to read and pick it up. So, yeah. So that was varsity at Wits, which was a wonderful experience.
Tell me now, you said when you were looking for funding to do your honors, you didn't get the funding you were looking for. You got a job offer instead. How does that happen? And you were not too impressed initially.
No.
Tell me about it.
So I wanted to do honors in industrial psychology. I also wanted to leave Gauteng and Joburg. So I was quite specific. I wanted to go to Rhodes University, but I needed a bursary or some sort of funding for that. Backstory is that I did undergrad at Wits because my mom works there. And so that was sorted. That was the only way I would have studied there. But now it's like, I need to venture out. So I wanted to go to Rhodes to do my honors there, and I'd been applying for bursaries, nothing. Then I find, and it really was an application for the graduate program at Liberty. So I changed strategies at that point. I was like, okay, bursary not working out, but this is an application, so slip it in there, and then when I get there, I'll tell them I actually want the funding for school, not the job. And at the interview, they're asking me all these questions, and I couldn't have been far into the interview where I was like, you know, let's not waste each other's time.
To be honest.
Yeah, you know, why I'm here.
I just want to go back to school. Now that you're in this room, let's talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know how to come to this office, so now I'm here. I want to do my honors, and that's all I'm interested in. So no, I didn't know about this job. No, don't worry, we hear you. Let's just continue the interview. So the interview continued, completed it, and probably a week later, I get a phone call from the manager who'd hired me, Sean, and he says, "You've got the job for the grad program." I wanted to cry.
And not tears of joy.
No, I didn't want the job. I told you guys I just wanted a bursary. And he's like, "No, this is really great news." It was also their first grad program ever, you know. So he's like, "This is really great news, and we promise you we'll take care of the studies part." And so that's what they did. The following February, I started my very first job on the graduate program. Wonderful opportunity once again, you know. But again, just, you know, you talked about your star just kept rising and rising. And I think over time I've appreciated how it's just been God creating.
Opening those doors.
All of those doors.
Tell me a little bit about that now and what you go on to do, very briefly, to say, you know, this opportunity, that opportunity, and eventually I was where?
Yeah, so stayed at Liberty for some time, and then moved within the organization, which has kind of followed me everywhere, this moving thing. And so by the time I left there, I'd been appointed as the head of HR for one of the divisions in the organization. And so I dropped out, I think at the beginning of the second year, which is also a narrative. It's, you know, when you hear other people tell your life story in a way and the beautiful things that happen, you don't appreciate that there's a journey and not all things are perfect and fall into place. And I think failing honors for me was a big, I'd never failed. I was the clever girl who got
overachiever,
selected,
actually.
Yeah, so it was a big, big learning moment for me to like, people fail and their lives don't end, and you learn from it and you pick yourself up and you move on from it. And I think that was, you know, I really, really appreciate that experience because I think it helps me not to take things so seriously.
And Columbia University, darling, Ivy League, darling. This young girl from Soweto who'd always seen herself as, you know, a charity case because I got this and that because of, you know, and there you were holding your own.
Absolutely.
Tell me about that.
One of the things I did get out of my experience at the German school was a passion that was good and bad that drove me to say, I love this experience, I'm so grateful for it, but why did I have to get lucky and be in the right family, the right time, the right township for this to happen? I want for every child to have this quality education and this experience that I've had. And that thing followed me even through my corporate career. I'd always had this like, how do I address that niggle?
So there's a picture of you. Now, you were graduating there, but where?
This was at Columbia.
That's mom.
My doctorate. That's mom. That's my
Is that
husband.
Boo Thang?
Mutlatsi, and my little boy Marang.
Oh.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was a wonderful experience. You know, it was America, big old America. Thankfully, I'd been there before that. And then it's the Ivy League thing. It had been a struggle to get into the Ivy League thing.
You said you kept on applying again.
I'd applied to different schools. I applied to Harvard. Back to my thing about I'd always passed. And I think the honors failing helped me to deal with some of those disappointments. One of them was I'd always wanted to go to Harvard. And I thought I'm going to get a PhD from Harvard. And I was declined there. And through, you know, part chance encounters, but also how literally the universe conspires in your favor.
Yes.
And Professor Jonathan Jansen, who was at the time at the University of the Free State, he had literally accepted a meeting from a random me met with him, told him my whole story. I'm applying everywhere, not getting in, but I really want to get into education, and I really want to have credibility in education. I just don't know how. And he literally called up a few people, called the person who would later be my supervisor at Columbia and said, there's this girl, she's about to go to the US. And so got there, and I spent almost my entire first year in the US volunteering. Yeah.
And then when we come back, we'll talk about how she used that experience to give back. So believe it or not, she was one of my lecturers as well in class. And I think she'll tell you I was a star student. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. But she'll talk to us about, how she gave back and the work that she does today. And of course, what the future has in store. Stay with us. Hello again. Thank you so much for joining us. So we're still talking to Dr. Zuki, as she's more affectionately known. I want to then find out about Seeds of Hope and the work that you're doing to give back. Sometimes we say, I've studied in Columbia, I've achieved this, I've achieved that, my family and I are great, that's comfortable, But very few people will then say, khona bantwana bakithi eSoweto, khona bantwana bakithi wherever in the country that still need to get this experience that I've received. How did you reach that point?
So Seeds of Hope was started with a group of friends. In fact, it was a project of one of our friends, for a program she was a part of. And we'd always spoken about, guys, like, what are we going to do to give back? What are we going to do to give back? And she'd at least packaged it into a real thing. And so we all jumped on, started Seeds of Hope. This was almost 9 years ago.
Wow.
Lots of learning in the process of, so what do we do? Yes, we're this nonprofit, but what do we do? And where we've landed is we partner with schools in townships who are under-resourced, which is informed really by the poverty level that the school falls under. And we provide tutorial programs to grades 9, 10, and 11 on a Saturday, so extra classes that are a different classroom experience for the kids because they're in really oversized classes every other day. We cap our classes at 20 kids per class, and so they really get to have an intimate learning experience from our volunteer tutors. But the whole idea was, with all of our careers, we've got enough of a network that we can extend to these schools. Precisely. So that's essentially the work we do in Seeds of Hope. And out of that, I've had an opportunity then to sprout out and develop my own professional capability to support school leadership teams. So I've now worked, and I do work in the Western Cape's education department, particularly in Knysna, through an organization founded by Joe Marcus, and then do work in some of the other provinces. So it's really at this point, it's on a school by school basis. But we've learned to appreciate, the little victories.
You have here something that's very close to your heart. I want you to tell me a little bit about this and what's inside. Some of us are very, very nosy. Why? So what's going on here?
So this is a memory box. And for a girl who's into digital things, this is very, very on me because it's all paper and printed and handwritten.
And some of the paper looks really old. What's going on?
Let me open it for you. So I kept this. I think the box itself was a gift. But a lot of, as I was rummaging through here, when I was coming to the show, a lot of the memories that I've kept in there are a tradition I've always had with one of my closest friends, Lebu, that I was at school with. She and I used to write letters to each other. And so just reading, a lot of it are just letters from Lebu in there. But then I started, keeping other memories. This surprised me when I saw it.
It's an article.
It's an article.
It's dated October 17, 1989.
Yes, ma'am.
What's going on?
I was in a beauty contest.
Yes, girl. And then what happened?
So I think if you turn it around,
you can tell this is original.
Yeah, that's the one.
It's still the.
So glad someone kept it for me. Yeah.
Okay, which side are we looking at?
So I think that one is all
beautiful
the finalists.
Kids.
Yes.
Oh my word.
Yeah, so that
we're going to keep this one day for when you're Minister of Education, because I know that's one of your things that are on the to-do list.
Where I'm going.
Ungasilibali, girl. Masasukubiza minister.
Luto, I need
Don't
you all to
forget
come
us.
and be tumad while I'm there. So.
Yes, to my eyes, to my eyes. I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. What do you do for fun? What do you do for fun? Because all of this is incredible, but it feels to me like you're doing a lot of work in this
Yeah, I
portfolio
do.
life of yours.
I run. I love
enjoy
running.
running, yeah.
Running is my sanity.
Yeah.
I love traveling. I do have a wandering heart. So I love traveling and just discovering new experiences, new places. So there are lots of places in the world I'd still love to go to.
I'm glad you're talking about traveling. So, if you were stuck on an island by yourself, you have your handbag with you,
Okay, good.
but you only have 3 items in that handbag. What would they be?
Sure. My ear pods.
Okay.
Seemingly, I value more than the phone.
So you would have your ear
I
pods.
have my ear pods. I'd have my Kindle.
Okay.
Just because that's the only way I can take all the books.
Okay. Oh my gosh, there's no running away from that. Okay, the third thing.
Wow. I'd be on my own.
You are all alone.
One.
Think very carefully about this because we don't know how long
I
you'll
don't
be
want to
alone for until they
offend
rescue you.
anybody. Definitely some memory of my family. So a
Yeah.
picture. I don't know if you can squeeze in one picture without doing it digitally. A picture with all of them.
You know what's the first thing I would take? Always Vaseline, girl.
Huh?
Vaseline.
Really?
You want to be there with dried lips on the island? Thank you so much for joining us. I've loved chatting to you.
you.
Continue to fly that flag high.
Thank you
I think
so
you're representing the aspirations of every young black girl in the township.
Yeah.
Keep it up.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Amanda.
much. And thank you for joining with us. Make sure that you do it again next week. Bye for now.
3 pearls of wisdom I would share. The first is go to school. School is cool. Go to school. I don't care if it's grade 9, grade 8, matric, PhD, just go to school. Secondly, we need women if Africa is going to thrive. So invest in women, work with them, invite them, protect them. And finally, always, always, always dress for your next big job, your next big thing.